Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling Irons preview. And this week, Mike, we've got Nottingham Forest, and it is crunch time once again. We keep saying it every week, but it is crunch time for David Moyes and West Ham. And yeah, it's a massive game at this stage of the season. You know, we've got 15 games left to play. Did you expect to be, at this stage of the season playing someone like Forest and really, really depending on 3 points?
Let's be honest, no, we didn't. We did say that this year could be a difficult season. And I think I said we'd finish around about 8th, I think. I don't think I said we'd be potentially in Europe again. But no, let's face it, the fact of where we are with, and it is an embarrassment of riches in terms of the squad, the quality of players we have isn't quality in terms of a team at the moment, but in terms of the quality of some of the players in that squad, it's an embarrassment we are where we are. Injuries have played a part, but by and large, I would say complete mismanagement of said players and a lack of understanding of how you get the ball through the middle of the park and then you create enough. Now, I know some people will say we've created enough over that period because they'll talk about XG, but having an accumulation of shots to build up on your XG doesn't mean much if essentially each one of those individual opportunities is not very high rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming up against the Nottingham Forest team that, again, they aren't particularly ahead of us this season. If we look at the head-to-head, we've played the same amount of games. They are 5 positions higher than us in 13th with 5 more points and 1 more win this season. So I think when we first started the season, we had Forest away very early on, where we had the 1-0 defeat, and a lot of stuff that day just went wrong for us. I think we had like a disallowed goal, a penalty missed. We hit the bar and post like twice. It was just one of those games, and I think in large parts of that game we were pretty dominant, albeit it's going to be a pretty different clash this time around, just because of the situation the both teams are in. That was their first home game back in the Premier League, so the crowd were right up for it. This time it's at our stadium where we need 3 points, and there is no other outcome that is good enough for David Moyes this weekend. So how much do you think that's gonna play a factor? Because it's kind of switched now. It's like, well, we are in a situation where we need to win this match, and it's going to be very difficult if we do concede that first goal, because the crowd will turn toxic very quickly at that stadium.
We concede the first goal. I don't see us coming back into the game, if I'm being brutally honest. If this was last year, you say, okay, concede the first goal. Not ideal, but we got goals. But what is great is we probably have, for the first time this season, the entire squad to choose from. Now, match fitness is something within there that, people may then argue that because people are not match fit, that's not a full squad to choose from. But in terms of bodies who are able to get minutes on the pitch, everyone's there. I just think we've got to be 100% proactive. We can't be lackadaisical in any way, shape, or form. The moment that first whistle goes, we need to go in. That first challenge has to be everything needs to go into that first challenge. Even if you take a yellow card because you'll tell the crowd straight away, we're up for this. That happens, the crowd will get behind. Let's face it, West Ham fans, sometimes a bit of skill gets them going. But if you see a blood and thunder tackle, that tends to I've been to games and that has been the biggest cheer of a game, even over a goal sometimes. If someone has just flown in and absolutely levered someone.
I remember seeing it last year when we were playing Lyon at home and Craig Dawson just went through 2 players in like 3 seconds and everyone just went absolutely mental.
But that's it, because all of a sudden it's that passion. It's like, oh, they get it. Like people always have that thing of, oh, I'd do that. I'd jump into that tackle. I'd jump into there. I'd go in hard. And it's that thing of, at least then you can see someone is trying to set a tempo. Now that's the main thing, is we have to set a tempo. We have to be aggressive. We cannot do what we've done in so many games and just sit in a shape. It's just, I know people will go, well, we need to keep it tight. We've done that all season. We've tried to keep it tight. We haven't been beaten badly by teams because we've kept it tight in games. But ultimately, what has it given us? 4 wins over a course of a season. There comes a point where it's stick or twist, and we've got 15 games to go to save ourselves. it's time to start twisting and starting to take risks. We can't just continue to go in the same vein and expect results to change. Now, I predicted XI. It's pretty much about the same vein, but I think there would be some tactical changes within that. But
Yeah.
Again, it's David Moyes, and you just kind of look at it and go, is there going to be much change there? And you just can't see him breaking away from it to kind of go hell for leather in a game. I really want to be wrong, but we've not had enough proof over the course of the season that he can and is willing to even do that.
Well, he said in his press conference today, he said like he knows what he's going to do. He's not going to tell us. So he's keeping his cards very close to his chest. In terms of the team news, it looks like, yeah, as we mentioned, pretty much everyone is back in and around the squad and training. He mentioned Paqueta's, probably the one that's furthest away out of all of them in terms of Cornet and Zuma coming back as well. So I think we can expect to see the likes of Cornet on the bench. One thing I took from that, though, was he didn't mention Skamaka in that kind of same vein. So he could be slightly ahead of those players. I know he touched on Danny Ings as well, as rumours have come out that Ings is probably going to get his first start. Would you be happy to see that? And could it be that, as Moyes is saying, he's keeping his cards close to his chest? We'll get into the predicted XI in a minute, but could he be looking at maybe going 2 up top?
Maybe. Part of me feels that he's actually he's better off, if anything, if he wants to play Danny Ings. I personally wouldn't go 2 up top because I think fundamentally we lack the players in which to facilitate it. As we saw in the last game, his midfield 3 was defensive. Is he going to put Fornals in there or Lanzini? I'm trying not to be negative about it, but the fact of the matter is we just constantly see that he's always going to do it. So even if he puts 2 there, what's he going to do? He's going to say, Soufal and Emerson, you need to push up really high.
Yeah.
And then he's going to
we saw him go. We did see him kind of deploy a 4-4-2 before when he first came back, and we had in his first spell, when we had like Haller and Antonio up front, and it actually seemed to work quite well at the start.
I would say that's because Pellegrini was playing a 4-4-2. So he played a 4-4-2 because it was an easier way to bring himself in, not change too much, change a few things, and then he can start bringing in his approach.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, that 4-4-2 also disappeared pretty quickly. And then Allaire went out of the team and only came in when Antonio. So I know people might allude back to that, but again, it was because a previous manager played it. He hasn't played that really since. And when he's played 2 up top, it tends to be Bowen. So is he going to play? I just kind of think we're probably better off going for a 4-3-3, ideally. If he wants to play Antonio, fine. Put Antonio on the left. Put Danny Ings through the centre. And you just say, look, I need you to play as a 2, arguably. But I need you to be staggered. And I need Antonio, I need you to come out more to the left-hand side. And Bowen, obviously, you're going to play as you normally would on that right-hand side. But I don't see the point of playing Danny Ings up top as a lone striker because he's very rarely done it massively successfully throughout his career. He's been a very good striker, but he's always looked best in a partnership and in a duo. And again, let's face it, whenever we look at what Moyes does, if he plays that 2 up top, then I don't see a 4 behind it. I see a narrow 3 and then a back 5.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing as well. And we can maybe say there could be a 2 up top again. Like we kind of saw when we played at 5-3-2. Again, we saw that against Spurs and it just didn't work. But he might be tempted to try something a bit different at home and maybe play that system again, but a bit more attacking, and maybe go with someone like Antonio and Ings or even Bowen and Ings and maybe give it a different kind of stylistic point of view. But let's take a look at the predicted XIs for both teams anyway. So with us, we've pretty much got the same team, other than Ben Rama coming back in for Downs, and we're going back to that 5-2-3.
And Zuma in the middle as well.
Yes, and Zuma, sorry, because we saw that last time Zuma came back and was straight in that XI, and the fact we're playing a back 5, if he's back and he's been training a while, with Moyes' future on the line, he will play Zuma. He will play him, regardless of whether it's a risk or not.
The fact that he took off Bonner in the Tottenham game, I think that also tells you that despite it was a functional change in terms of a formation change, it also that he believed of the back line, he was the player probably most at fault for both of the goals because Kehrer stayed on. Obviously, again, he's undroppable. I think basically, even if he does play bad in games, he is an undroppable player for us at the moment. So I think that tells you that if there is a replaceable one at the moment, if we're playing in that three, it will be Ogbonna.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I think what Moyes saw in the second half of that Spurs game was Ogbonna was getting caught out quite a lot. Whether that's just because of his age, probably is, and the fact that he just can't keep up for a 90-minute period, and he's played a lot of football for us recently. You know, he's been a pretty big star in the Premier League as well. So, yeah, I think looking at this, it will probably be something like this. But then Moyes' comments today have made me kind of question whether he's going to change it a little bit more. But I don't know. Is there any part of you that, before we get onto the Forest side of things, is there any part of you that thinks he could go back to a back four and play Emerson as a left back and Kufau as a right back and maybe bring in Zuma back as well?
I think with everyone being available as such, then yeah, I think there is a very good chance we could do that. Ideally, I think we are better playing for back four and going for the game. I think we're better off if we go for the game and lose. Fans will be far more reasonable. They won't obviously be happy and arguably won't be reasonable because, again, it will be another defeat. But if we're at least showing an intent, not only in the formation, the tactics and the kind of selection, but if there's an intent when we play and we lose by, because we maybe get done on a counter-attack or something, we'll complain, but we'll also at least have to say, you know what, he went for it. He knew his job was on the line. He went for it. He tried something different. Commend that. Ideally, he goes for a back four and he goes for a three in midfield. Ideally, again, he's put in Rice central, either Lanzini or a Fornals, hopefully, then goes in midfield as well. Obviously, Paqueta likely not quite ready yet. Fitness will be fine. It's just obviously whether his shoulder is secure enough or feels secure enough to kind of go.
Yeah.
But we need a ball carrier. We need someone who can actually take possession. And by playing a Lanzini or a Fornals, what that will do in possession-wise, that will then allow us to say to Souček, just go. You just get up there and whoever plays up top, then they can drop deep. So you just start moving forward. You get yourself in a position where if we want to hit it diagonal, hit it against a fullback, and we want you to be there to try and win it, do it. Because then at least we can then shuffle the deck and move into like a double pivot, and then he can then go maybe as the kind of pinnacle of the midfield. And we're not going to be using him to kind of create, but we're going to be using him to kind of play off of. So, to create knockdowns, to again, get close to maybe if we are playing Danny Ings, to get him close to Ings, to give Ings someone to essentially take some of the focus off of him and give a kind of a focal point for us to kind of hit. So I do feel that if we go with Souček and Rice, we are going to again struggle because it's just playing through. Obviously, Rice can carry the ball. He has improved on some of his kind of creative passing in terms of, making more kind of key passes and so on and creating chances, but they're not necessarily high value chances. I just think we need something in the middle to help us to, when we need to, take the sting out of the game. And that's something we have struggled with all season because we haven't necessarily set up that midfield three in which to have players who can take maybe a bit of sting out of the game, who can then move the ball on. We just panic in possession, and without Paqueta, we really struggle. So you just kind of hope that it is a free. And if anything, I would probably look to put Antonio on the left side, and because they're probably going to play Aguirre. I think it's Aguirre. No, Aurier. Sorry, even. So again, put Antonio up against Aurier.
Yeah,
Aurier. Like Antonio, he has moments where he goes missing, but also he will gun on as well. So I know people will then go, well, if Johnson plays right-hand side, then that's a lot of pressure on Emerson if we go to a four. It's like, we're in a position now where we're going to have to start saying players, you're going to need to start defending one-on-one, taking those one-on-one opportunities, and maybe also thinking, well, they're going to come down at us on that right-hand side. Maybe we need to be a bit braver and say, whoever that left side is, you sit behind. The entire time, you sit behind them. If Aurier goes forward, let him go. Midfield will deal with that. So the midfield shuffles over. So say Declan Rice then comes over to that left-hand side to protect. This is what we used to see with when we had Payet, for instance. Prime example, right? Cresswell would have to defend one-on-one, but then Noble would come on over as well. The whole midfield would kind of come over to that side and help, so there wasn't kind of 2v1s. And then Payet essentially would just sit behind. Maybe we should do the same with Antonio because he's got pace. Get Ings as a centre forward in this game because I do think it'd probably be too soon to get Skamaka in as a start. And just say they're going to come at us down that right-hand side. So we're going to take a bit of a risk. We're going to entrust Emerson to defend 1v1. Rice, if we play free midfield, two of you need to essentially be willing and able to come across often and kind of help to prevent any 2v1s. And when we get the ball, we need to hit in the middle, then hit out wide. So then attack into that space that they leave. Because that, I think, is going to be the avenue for us to then do that. Because Aurier is not always the best defender. He can switch off and he does like to get forward. So if we are looking to exploit those spaces he leaves, yes, we're going to take a risk defensively. But arguably, we're at a stage now where we have to start taking these risks far more often.
Yeah.
Lodi on the other side, he's going to get forward as well. So again, that does leave space for Bowen. But I think Bowen, we're better off on that side, just being a bit more reserved, utilising Bowen to come inside and then also Soufal on the outside. I think on the down their side, on the right, we should take some chances because Johnson's not really going to come back very much now. Aurier has errors in him and lapses. So I think that's the route, if anything, the side we need to go down. And as much as I think Ben Rama has played well over the course of this season, it's probably one of those times where maybe we go, let's mix it up. Let's try Antonio, let's get Antonio back on the wing. Let's put him up against someone who's going to be a physical battle because Ben Rama's not going to win the physical battle with Aurier. And he's not going to win a foot race.
I think my main concern with that would be that we are, like we've mentioned here, we will lack so much technical ability on the ball and we'll have only really Rice in there that can do that because you're going to have Bowen one side, Antonio the other, Danny Ings up front, and then Souček next to Rice. I don't. It depends if we would play a free. I would play a free. I would play a 4-3-3 as well and put Fornals back in there. But I really don't think Moyes will do that. I think he'll stick with his back five. And especially as we were mentioning here, with Zuma now probably back, I don't think he would trust Zuma in a back four right now. I think he'd be much more comfortable in a back five. So if we kind of look at the flip side and look at Forest, it's likely we'll see something like this with Chris Wood up front. And where do you kind of see Nottingham Forest maybe causing us some kind of potential issues? I think Gibbs White has been a very, very good player for them this season. Brennan Johnson's starting to hit a bit of form. And we've actually seen a kind of different Nottingham Forest from what we saw at the start of the season to now. And Steve Cooper probably deserves a bit of credit for that because he's had to adjust his own tactics and he's had to adjust what he predominantly wants to do at Forest. And he has to just work with what he's got. And it looks like they've become a bit more of a cautious team, a bit more of a counter-attacking team. And that could potentially play into their hands if they do that on Saturday. So what do you think about Forest, at the moment, and what kind of dangers they're going to possess when they come to the London Stadium?
Yeah, I think their danger is going to be on the counter. Now, obviously, we've got Woods there, but it's very likely, actually, it could be Johnson playing in that role as the centre forward with Gibbs White on the right. And what they'll then do, they'll look to hit us on the counter attack. So they will be looking to sit in tight, restrict the space in front, kind of what they did to us in their home game, really. They tried to really limit that space in the middle until we got very stupid and decided to run straight into Mangala and then obviously get our goal ruled out. They'll look to frustrate us, hit us on the counter attack. When they've got possession, they'll look to, again, create little passing triangles, look for overlaps as well when they get the chance as well. And I don't think it's going to be an easy game. I think anyone going into this expecting an easy game is maybe underselling Forest at the moment. And also just how poor we've been. We have rushed so much what we do in games that we just do not look comfortable in quite a few phases. So we really have to seize the initiative and we need to be forceful in our attack and a bit aggressive. But that will also be what Nottingham Forest will be expecting, and they'll also be hoping that because they'll be looking to hit us on the counter-attack because there is, unlike with us, there's something that we say all the time, we don't have pace, whereas they do. And in particular, they have pace in those flanks, especially if Gibbs White and Johnson are there. They're also very comfortable in 1v1 situations, running against defenders. So
yeah, one thing to mention actually from this lineup is both their centre backs got injured recently, so it'll probably be Felipe and Worrell as their centre backs. So yeah, just to bear in mind with this lineup, it'll probably be Felipe because they both got long-term injuries. So again, I guess that could potentially play into our favour as well if they've got their two kind of first-choice centre backs out injured as well.
Yeah, so it's weird because obviously Forest, what's helped them turn everything around is their home form. They've not been good away from home, and they've often struggled away from home. So they're not great on their travels, but then here comes the old adage of here comes West Ham.
I mean, they've won one Premier League away game so far this season, and that was Southampton.
Exactly, and so again, you just look at it and go, they've not won away from home. They're clearly struggling with finding or adapting their lineups in which to play away from home. But also, it's when you play away from home, most home teams are aggressive and look to take the game to you. We, on the other hand, like we saw, say, in the game against Fulham early on in the season, we were, again, terrible for the first 15 minutes. We gave all the initiative to them until they scored, which was going to be obvious at the time because of how we played. We didn't really start playing. So if we sit back as we have done with that mantra of keep it tight, then we're not going to be open and adventurous in possession. And that's where we could come unstuck because it effectively just allows them to grow in confidence. And if you give players time on the ball, all of a sudden they're going to start thinking, well, okay, we've got time on the ball. This is fine. They're going to grow in confidence. They're going to start trying things. And then ultimately, before you know it, they potentially start then knocking on the door, and then you're then having to try and turn the tide because you've given the initiative over. So they are going to look.
How do you expect them to approach the game from the start then, considering that? Because I feel like we have no other option than to start fast and to press higher and not sit off like we have done. Do you expect A, us to do that, and B, what would you expect their initial reaction to be to that? Would you think they'll kind of sit in for that counter attack like we mentioned, or do you think they'll try and get a bit more possession and play through the lines?
So, in terms of us or them, sorry.
In terms of Forest, yeah.
I think Forest. I think, if all honesty, Forest are going to come in, they're going to sit and try and be compact, and they're going to say to us, "Go wide." Now, obviously, initially looking at obviously from the last game, obviously they did have Bolly and McKenna fit at the time, but again, I think they're just going to ask. They're basically going to push us wide. They're going to say, "Can only cut you." Basically, force us out there. Hope that we don't kind of essentially. We have the movement in which to kind of drag them from side to side. Now we have to be quick with our play. And I think they're just going to sit in there, be compact, and they're just going to ask us really to break them down.
Yeah.
And then they're going to hit us on the counter-attack. Now, if you look at the Fulham game, one of the goals, it was obviously right at the end, but again, it was a good attack, but it was patient play on the edge of the area where they dragged them all over to the right-hand side, and then Solomon was left completely on his own, empty on the left angle, or the angle on the left-hand side of the area. And he was played in to then obviously slot the ball away. But that's the kind of thing we need to do. We're going to have to be patient at times. One of the things that we need to do is we have to be quick in our passing, which is something that we haven't done enough of all season. We've just been really kind of just ponderous. So we need to have pace in those passes. But more importantly, players have got to be willing to move and run and make those unselfish runs. And I think the reason why some players seem to stop in games is because they're making them throughout the game. And sometimes they're making really good movements and someone's not taking that risk. Because again, it's this, we need to keep it tight. We don't want to give away sloppy possession.
Yeah.
And because we don't have risk takers, now obviously loads of people will say Fornells will give it away too much. I will often moan that Lanzini is a bit too ponderous in possession or a bit too passive. It's a lot of sideways passing and so on, and it's not necessarily very incisive or penetrative. But again, he does have the ability to inject pace into the passing and, try and break a line from time to time. And obviously Fornells is another one who, whilst he may give the ball away quite often, he takes risks.
Yeah.
On most of
He'll
his
look for those passes. He will look for those passes.
Exactly, and because he takes risks, he can create stuff. And I think that's what we've massively lacked. And we've seen Paqueta when he's done well, he's taken risks in his passing, and it's not quite came off yet.
Yeah.
But it's the more we start playing in that way, when something starts to click and players start to realize, oh, if I make that move, he's going to try it. The players are going to make that move. I'm going to run him behind more often. I'm going to drop to come short, and then I'm going to spin in behind because I know he knows that I'm now going, and he's going to do that. I'm going to drag someone out of my space, or I'm going to come for the ball, show inside, so someone else can make it. Take in the space that I've now created. But because we don't do that often enough, the passers are not making those passes, not attempting them. Players in our position don't do it, so we tend to just stand around like statues, waiting for the ball and just passing it side to side, and it's just ineffective.
I think with what we did with our predicted XI, I think if we do see that kind of team, it's going to be very difficult for us to do what you just mentioned in terms of penetrate and have someone on the ball that can make those passes. So with everything we've kind of discussed, not what do you predict, but like how do you see the pattern going from start to finish, and then we'll end on our score prediction? Because do you expect us to kind of come out the blocks straight away and then get the initial goal and kind of be on top of Forest from there, and then they have to come out? Or do you expect us to be a little bit more passive, a little bit more conservative, as we've seen in most games this season, and then it kind of flips and we're struggling again, and Forest kind of pin us back?
If I'm honest, I think it'd be like it was in the Spurs game, right? We'll come out in the first 5 minutes, really make a play, and then if we don't continue to be aggressive and pressing all the time, after that first 5 minutes, the half might peter out because we'll allow them possession. Essentially, we have to suffocate them for at least the first 15 minutes. It has to be almost all or nothing in the first 15 minutes in terms of the press going forward. Now, I know I say all or nothing. It's not like, gung-ho and that we're just leaving gaps everywhere, but we need to have real intent. Everything needs to be on the front foot. Nothing can be or should be passive. If we do that, then I think it will peter out like the Spurs game did in that first half. And then I think come the second half, we'll go out to play, but I think we'll see the same again, because the moment you allow the players to sit and relax is when it starts to drop.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even like looking at the stats from this week, we've gone behind 19 times in 23 matches, which is crazy, like an absolutely mental statistic. So yeah, I don't think Moyes has any other opportunity than this one to go for it. If we continue to be passive and continue to play in the way we have done, we're going to struggle, and it's not going to, the fans are not going to be encouraged by that, especially playing at home. So with everything we've discussed, with everything about Moyes, with everything on the line, do you see us getting 3 points on Saturday? And do you think Moyes will keep his job beyond this match?
I'm going to be positive, say we'll get a result. I'd say we might nick it. I don't think he should keep his job, but I think we are where we are. Sullivan's not going to let him go unless we get spanked. But I do think we might get the result this weekend, probably because I'm not going. So we probably will get the point.
Score prediction?
Let's go 2-1, because I can't see us not conceding.
I actually think we're going to draw 1-1. I'm going to be that guy that's a bit more passive this week. I'm normally quite optimistic, but I just don't think we're going to win. And I think this will be the end of Moyes at West Ham. So, I mean, yeah, we've discussed it before. Obviously, we need the 3 points and want the 3 points. But yeah, we're going to see what happens. Let us know in the comments down below as well what you guys think. Whether you'd like to see a back five like we predicted, or you'd want to go to a back four. And how do you expect us to come out the blocks? Do you expect us to be a bit more up for this one? Or can you see it kind of repeating how it's gone recently with the patterns of play and kind of being more conservative? So yeah, let us know down in the comments. Leave a like on the video as always. Subscribe to the channel. And Mike, one thing left to say.
Come on, you
irons.